we'll be sending out at least one special newsletter to inform the public to make sure that they, they're aware. Actually, it came out in the current newsletter yesterday, and we'll do another special newsletter. So we'll have it right here in town hall. And then next on the list is we have Jeff Dupay in front of us here. So, kind of giving us a UDOT update and, just one comment, Jeff, you were on the panel in, our workshop, general planning session. So some people heard you, but I just wanted to make sure, because I don't think all the council members were there. Number one, number two, anything you'd like to add since that point, but, and re-summarize that would be great, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. You want me to come up to the podium or just?
Yeah, probably.
Please, yeah, thank you so much.
Actually, can the mic over there? Do we need to-
If I talk loud enough, can everyone hear me?
Usually have it over there.
I can slide this over if that works.
I can help you.
Wherever you want.
Right here, you're good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I hope I found the discussion, at the previous meeting was good. I had no intention of doing a lot of the talking at that time, but I totally understand. For those of you who weren't there, my name is Jeff Dupay. I'm the planning manager for UDOT Region 2, which covers this area. So we cover Salt Lake Summit and Tooele counties, but with SR 248, even though we're here in Wasatch County, because of what 248, it connects or to the Camas Valley and the other parts of Summit County. They just made a decision to have this portion of the corridor being in Region 2, and everything, from SR 32 down into Heber is Region 3. So sometimes, depending on what happens, you may have a different, so I'm just waiting for my computer to, we'll just move forward anyway. So I wanted to come here or the mayor asked me to come and just address the council regarding some of the things that we've been talking about regarding SR 248. Those who are at the meeting, this is going to be a little repetitive, but what we're looking at. So one of the big challenges that we have as a community are the offsetting intersections of Shoreline Drive and Deer Mountain Road or Deer Mountain Drive, and so we've been talking with Dennis, with Jan and the mayor, as to what things could happen within the in the short term, as well as what needs to happen in the long term. So one of the big challenges is trying to consolidate those intersections, because the city has a corridor agreement with the department that's been in place for 10+ years. And the requirement of that corridor agreement is, in order to signalize the intersection, that area, those two intersections need to be aligned and brought square up to each other. So as part of those conversations, we've had some really good conversations and on-site visits up here, and where we're settling is for the long term. I've been talking to our central planning group to see what funds we can contribute, and ask the community contribute a small percentage, so that we can put together a good concept of what that level of effort would take in order to consolidate those, and put together a cost, so that both us and the town know what it's going to take in order to get that built. In addition to that, we also want to look at other intersection treatments in the interim that could be forward compatible with that future realignment of those two intersections. So that's another thing that is going to be looked at as part of the study. In the shorter term, we have a new traffic and operations engineer, Grant Farnsworth, who just a few years ago was the planning manager for the region. We met with Grant and some of his traffic team to identify some additional shorter term improvements. And so unfortunately I was gonna show a map, but I can just talk through it. But what we're looking at is some driver feedback signs in 3 different locations as you approach the 65 mph zone. It flashes if you're going over that limit. They do have a certain level of effectiveness. Are they a silver bullet that's going to take care of all the problems? No. And I think everyone recognizes that. So we have one location in the downhill direction coming towards Deer Mountain Drive, and then 2 additional locations coming from the 2A Longview intersection coming down into that same area, for just to help provide that feedback. We're also, as we've been working with Dennis, there's been a request to look at some additional what we call pavement messages, but paint on the roadway itself, telling you what the speed limit is, to help reinforce the speed limits, as well as in addition to the signs. That's still being worked out. The estimates that Grant was telling me is for the pavement messages, it's about $1,600 to $2,000 to $3,000, depending on the number of messages that would be needed per message, just because you're paying for the equipment, the manpower. It's not just, a guy going out with a roller and putting stuff on the road. So it's a little more complex, but that's still in the works as an interim. In addition to that, I don't know if you've noticed, but this week we started construction of the signal there on the east end of Hideout. They're at 2A. They just barely gotten underway. They got notice to proceed or start the work last week, so they jumped on that pretty quickly. Is a good sign. With that traffic signal, we will also install what's called an AWS, or an advanced warning system. Similar to it functions similar to what you see down on SR 32 and River Road, where as you approach the intersection, it starts flashing when the light turns yellow, to give drivers time to slow down and come to a stop at the intersection. So those are some things that are happening. In addition to with that traffic signal, that speed limit in approaching the signal and as you drive away from the signal is also to be reduced to 55 mph. So those are some short-term interim improvements. There's more to be discussed and fleshed out at this time, but that's a lot of that is going to have to be determined by the study that we want to move forward with. In order to fund that, we like everybody, we work on a fiscal year calendar. So our calendar goes from end of June or 1st of July to the following end of June. So those dollars aren't available until then. But what we're currently working on is the scope of work, and I've got some things drafted. We're doing an internal review to make sure that all the our technical people are good with it. And then, we'll send it out to the mayor, to Janice to get their comments on that. So that we can move that forward, be ready, so that when those dollars become available, we can hit the ground running. We're not starting at that point. So now's the perfect time to get some of those things worked out.
And that's July 1?
That's July 1.
Okay.
Yep.
So we do want, and that's good because we're in our budget process right now, so.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this, but just on the record, we need, any updates to the cost. Just tell us as soon as we can, so just like you, we'll prepare our budget accordingly.
And I think the budgeted amount that we have discussed, that it's around, just for the council, we're looking at around $15,000 of contribution from the town. And then we would cover the rest of the cost. With the concepts, because we're trying to look at multiple concepts, not just the long term, but any interim concepts. We think it's gonna be even more, but we've agreed that we would cover those additional amounts. So I think we're moving in a good direction. And that's essentially kind of where we're at as far as that goes. I don't have a time frame because we're trying to also figure out the cost to install those driver feedback signs. So there's some things that still have to be worked out over the next month or two. But I think the conversations have been very good, and very, very honest and open between both sides. And hopefully we can really start moving some of these treatments forward.
I have a question.
Yeah.
From my perspective, our most pressing public safety issue is when you're driving south on 248 and you're about to turn right on the shoreline.
Right.
The traffic tends to really climb up on your bumper and they don't get the idea that you're turning right, even though you're on your brakes and your turn signal's on. I'm not a traffic engineer, so this is a question more than anything else. Is there some kind of sign that could be placed there that would say, something like caution, drivers turning right in 1,000 feet? And if there is such a sign, is that something that would be effective at all in warning people that, hey, there's a lot of people about to turn right? Is that at all useful?
So we did talk about that with Grant. I think that's not off the table. The one challenge is with some of those signs is you can put it in, but will the motorists see it?
That's the question.
Right.
I have you, because I'm not a traffic engineer.
Right.
What would it take to get people to notice that and take some action?
And I think that's one reason why we're thinking the driver feedback sign, because then it has some flashing, it draws attention to you, and maybe we also have to meet what's called the MUTCD, or the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So there are certain sign specifications that we have to follow. So it's not off the table. It's just right now, I don't think that, at least from our technical folks, they're not seeing that would provide enough of a safety benefit.
Thank you.
It's a good question, and without having those conversations, I don't think that it's a bad thing to at least ask and see what is possible.
So Jeff,
Sure.
If the intersection is going into 2A, that's great, and then reducing it, the speed limit to 55 there. We also reduced it at Black Rock, it put a similar signal there several years ago.
Yeah.
Why not just keep it 55 all the way through? Eventually, that's what it's gonna be. In fact, I've seen the long-term plans for like 4 traffic lights that'd be 55 all the way.
Right.
It's already 55 from Black Rock all the way into the rail trail crossing where it drops to 45. By the way, that sign's missing. The 45-mile-an-hour speed limit sign mysteriously disappeared a few months ago.
It's amazing how those things happen, right?
Kind of when Rocky Mountain Power was in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that, anyway, but if it, just lowering the speed 10 miles an hour makes a huge difference as far, and I agree with Jonathan. I just came back from Big Sky,
Mhm.
coming that direction, and there was a car right on my tail. I slowed down, but I started, and he just stayed on my tail. What I do is I pull off into the breakdown lane. Right? Which isn't quite wide enough to be a lane, but it's wide enough to stay on the pavement and have that car pass me, zip right by. That happens every time. So my other question is, from a temporary measure, could we put in a right-hand turn lane there? It wouldn't take very much pavement. We'd have to put Jersey barriers or something around the new power boxes, but they're 20, 30 feet away. They're plenty far away. If you put a guardrail and I would think that would be relatively inexpensive. Until we do the four-way intersection, which is obviously the long term, but I think that'll probably take years to raise the money, both for the town and the state. So I'd like your study to at least address, what would it cost to just pave another 5 to 10 feet along there?
Yeah, and that's one of the elements of the study.
Is it? Okay.
To look at what other interim treatments,
Clearly that would be interim until you get the intersection.
Yeah. exactly.
But I think.
And we did measure that off, remember, and we actually
Like it.
paced it off. And it's like right at the little edge of not having enough
Enough room.
lane coverage.
Hmm.
And so and I can't remember her,
Ivana.
said, it's just not enough room. I mean, I'm not a traffic engineer either, so, but in any case, it's part of the study. If we can get Rocky Mountain Power to move the electrical, I don't see why it'd be, be a problem.
But to your point, I mean, with that being on the edge, because we have what's called clear zone requirements.
Mhm.
So it's that recovery area that is needed on the side of a road. And unfortunately, we don't have that everywhere, but if you have other obstructions or other things that drivers could hit, you've got to protect those.
Right.
So, yeah, and so it's not as simple as just going out and laying out some pavement.
I understand
It's gonna require some design work as well to.
And I don't know if Rocky Mountain Power needs a certain amount of space between that protection barrier and the transformer.
Yeah, because they have to change those boxes.
So
Yeah.
that could
Yeah.
kill it, but reducing to 55 would help a lot.
Yeah, and that's a valid point because.
Before you paint on the road, I'd rather have it be 55.
Right. Having these speed differentials between, in between various areas is, I think that's something that we should continue to have that conversation.
Jeff, thank you.
I do have one question for the
Sure.
council. It's, and I know Dennis is online. I was asked by our project manager for the traffic signal, that's currently going in, to check with the town to see, to find out if there's any concerns regarding the agreement that we sent to the town, for the acceleration, lanes for there at the 2A intersection. The intent of that, is to have any future development be responsible for putting that eastbound acceleration lane in. Otherwise, we would just be, when we put up the signal, it would just be no right turn on red, just because of the speeds. Everyone's trying to climb up the hill.
Mhm.
The north side, that is being put in by the developer on the north side, that acceleration lane. We're just asking that, if there's any concerns regarding the agreement that we sent, to see if, what we need to do to work, try to get that agreement signed.
Jeff, can I speak to that quickly? Yeah, because I have received that. I did pass that on to, we're we have a city attorney, we're transitioning, they're passing the baton. That's kind of caught in the middle there. I did send it to Corbin, and I'm not trying to throw Corbin under the bus, because just I know that we've sent a lot of stuff to him, so he's overwhelmed. But I did forward that, and if it's got lost in emails with everything that we've been giving him, I'm happy to send it again. But I've kind of that's where it's at, is we're trying to get that legal review from the town. I don't, it makes sense. Not the council, it hasn't been presented to the council because we're still at that stage.
Right, okay, that's all we needed to know. The concern is because we're putting in the signal right now. Just trying to get some of that stuff finalized before we wrap up the construction of the signal.
If
I'm looking at Corbin, so Corbin, let's go over this as
Yeah,
soon
as
as
soon
you
as
can,
possible. I have it on my list.
Yeah, expedite it from your
Yeah,
end,
I can do
and
so.
work with Dennis.
If I might offer a suggestion that we loop the developer in, just to make sure that they don't have some kind of problem, or they're looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Let's at least run it by the developers to make sure that this isn't gonna cause a huge problem, or if it is, how we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a cost associated with it. No, there's no doubt. I think there's some estimates that were put together. But from our standpoint, the concern that we have is as these areas continue to develop out, that's causing an additional burden on the state road.
Yeah.
And we would like to have the developers also have a piece of that.
I think we need to loop them in.
Yeah, I agree. So,
So one other thing you guys may have.
Yeah, we're gonna have to call this.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, because we have a lot on the agenda. Sorry, we're gonna have to, and we're way over on this one. So Jeff, thank you so much.
I'll talk to you after.
yeah, if there's other
And-
questions,
and,
please
you
reach
know,
out.
We know we're gonna be in touch, so,
Yeah.
thank you, Jeff, for spending the time here. And
Bye.
go have a nice day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Because I knew that was on your calendar.
Public hearing, can we do the 6 o'clock public hearing?
Yes, we need to do that now, yeah. So, up there's, where are we now in the public hearing? So we'll actually move to agenda item Roman numeral 9, and that is for the public hearing on the rezoning or the zoning to mountain, from mountain to neighborhood mixed use for the fire station. So that's also very important, needs to be moved on. Thomas, so I'm gonna start counting the clocks on this. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, I think I can do this one quicker than 10 minutes. I'll make up some time for you all. Okay, I think Maria is sharing. Maria, if you can go to that staff report, I will kind of walk you and the council through it.
Sure. Mhm. Let me see this up here. Can you see that?
I do see that. Great,
Would
thank
you
you.
would you rather drive, Thomas? Do you want?
No, you're fine. I think this is pretty quick. I might just have you, if you don't mind, just scroll down to kind of the very bottom of the page. I'll give a quick overview to the council. Most of you are pretty familiar with this project. This is the Triangle project, or the Triangle property that the town owns. This property is located just kind of north of Claim, north of Wild Horse, north of Mr. Wolf's property. It's that triangle in there. It's about 3.35 acres. It's currently zoned mountain, which is a residential zone that allows for 1 unit per acre. The proposed zoning is neighborhood mixed use. You could scroll down to the map, Maria, so everybody can kind of identify there. You can see Wild Horse, the Wolf property, as well as the fire station site. You can scroll down a little bit more, and you could see the location of the property in context to the community at large. You can scroll down to the next page. So the recommendation is, you can see there, the recommendation is for neighborhood mixed use zoning designation. While this does not specifically state that a fire station is a permitted use, it does note that a public services facility is a conditional use. And so our recommendation is that, of course, a fire station be considered a public services facility. So once this is zoned neighborhood mixed use, should you adopt it, the fire station would be allowed to locate there by way of a conditional use permit that would have to be obtained in front of the planning commission. Right now, we are scheduled to take the fire station for a conditional use permit on March 19th, next Thursday, before the planning commission, and then right after on the agenda to do a subdivision to keep this process moving, as they do want to get a shovel in the ground ASAP. As part of any rezoning, it does need to be in compliance with our general plan. You can scroll down a little bit, Maria, to kind of that vision statement there. Certainly preserving outstanding views, locating buildings in the right location. In this case, along SR 248, keeps it out of other view sheds, given that that is not a significant view shed. Creating a neighborhood atmosphere and building a connected community, all of which we think that public safety contributes to. You can see the goals right below: address land use goals, environmental goals, et cetera, transportation goals. It's our recommendation that this does meet the goals. I won't go through each of them, but again, it really is a public health, safety, welfare recommendation to locate the fire station in this location. Therefore, our recommendation is for the 3.35 acres be rezoned from mountain, which is a residential zone, to neighborhood mixed use to allow for conditional use permits such as the fire station. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think most of you are familiar with this, but I am happy to answer any questions, any details that you may have.
Doesn't sound like there's any questions, so I would say, do we have a motion to move this forward?
Yeah, I'll move that we move it forward and approve it.
I do think that this is a public hearing. I think you have to open it for public.
That's right, you're right, thanks.
Yeah.
We're on public here, so let's stop for public comments. Maria, I'll let you.
I'm looking. Anybody online that's able to, I mean, everybody should be able to unmute themselves. So you're welcome just to speak up if I don't see your hand.
Barring any public comments, we're back to a motion.
I think
And
this-
Jonathan's got the motion. Is there a
For
second?
the ocean.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second. Annie,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
John.
Heck, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, we can move through that and hopefully we get this fire station in here as soon as we possibly can. So thanks, Thomas, appreciate it.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council.
Thank you. And so are we back to the agenda items here across this one off? And we are looking for Mr. Folk. Fred, are you on to take us through the discussion and possible adoption of the utility rate study? We have 10 minutes allotted for this. I'm not sure we can get through that, but if you can, Fred, if you're on.
Yes, I'm on.
Can you summarize this and kind of where your recommendations are?
Yes, can you all hear me?
We can.
Great. Yeah, so we've updated the memorandum relative to the utility rate analysis. If you scroll down to page 5, let's highlight the summary. There's a
Brad, would you like to drive? Do you want to do this?
Yeah, I
or
can do
you're-
that. Yep.
You want to? Yes. Bear with me.
I think I just need permission to do that.
You do, sorry.
Alrighty. It's saying I think you have to stop sharing and then I can share. Okay. Do this.
Did you get it?
Yep. Alrighty. Can you see the memo here in table 5?
Hmm,
Is that coming up on your end?
should be yes.
Letters, it's an envelope.
Okay, so yeah, we have updated this table. All the information remains the same except for the standby rate. We did have one modification here to the standby rate for those that do not bring water. We had to account for a little bit more cost allocation on that side. So no other changes here relative to sewer stormwater, at least relative to the recommended rate. Again, what we had highlighted previously is this for the water was an average allocation, since there's the tiering evaluation. That is the second item for discussion, but essentially suggesting that there could be a potential decrease on the water side relative to rates. But all of the rates showing need to push those up. So again, the recommended rate for standby, those that do not bring water, would be $36.34. The recommended rate for those on the standby who do bring water is $26.02. The storm rate would need to increase to $16.21, and the sewer rate would need to go up to $51.30. Again, the elements that we discussed last time relative to water were such that that would require additional evaluation, which we'll talk about in the next item. And the board will need to determine, or the council will need to determine, if you're ready to make a rate adjustment on the water side at this time, recognizing that there are some uncertainties in the future, potentially relative to capital improvement needs or revenue sufficiency relative to conservation. So I know there was some hesitancy there, but I'll be able to discuss where we're at on the tiering evaluation and what that looks like, and determine if we need to make some alternative assumptions as it relates to the water rate. Okay, so that's a summary on the cost allocation and rate adjustments. Any questions for me on this data?
I assume these numbers capture the recent JSSD increases to the town,
Yeah.
and that these have been adjusted based on those new rates.
Correct. Yeah, that's why the sewer is going up substantially on that side.
And my assumption, Fred, this is Katie Shepley. Right now, the standby fees are in great shape, and you are going to be recommending that these new rates be applied for those that brought water and those that didn't. And you're also making the recommendation today for sewer. But the storm change to 1621, that does not include the study we're doing on impervious area for the townhomes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the ones that we could definitively approve to our standby and sewer, the water is good from the 79 as a fixed rate, but we're going to be discussing the water tiering and getting everyone's opinion regarding that. Once we have their opinions, we can either make modifications, or we might be in a good position to approve.
Correct.
Okay, so stormwater, we are not recommending a decision on tonight. Water.
And Katie,
Right.
oh,
Mhm.
I just wanted to add that we are probably within a week of getting a draft of our analysis for the impervious area for stormwater.
Excellent. And then Fred, you said that once you get that study, that the storm is kind of separate from anything else. So it wouldn't change if the impervious area changes, because what that might be is we might have to allocate more or less to the Deer Mountain Todd Hollow apartments, depending on what the impervious area comes back with, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then water, depending on what the town council feels about the rates or the tiering, that'll be the deciding factor on water.
I have a question for Gordon. The agenda I was handed says, number 3, discussion only and possible adoption, those are really
Those are two
consistent.
contradictory.
Sorry, Liz.
So there was a noticing issue on this,
Okay.
and so that's. what
Discussion
we're
only.
talking about. So it's discussion only tonight. And I guess one question would be, because we're only discussing, if we could possibly get that information, it's been proposed to do a special meeting on the 24th at 5 o'clock to consider and approve these. And that may give additional time to staff to get the information you need so we can get all of these taken care of.
I can do the 24th.
Me too.
Yeah, I think you got.
I talked to everyone, so yeah, so as long as that's okay with everyone, that'll be fine.
Except for
Bob.
but
Yeah.
we'll leave that as it is at this point. So, and do we need to do anything else at this juncture, Fred?
No, it's just discussion only.
Yeah.
We can't take action on it, so we'll notice it up for the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks, Fred, but you're gonna be here, you're gonna do the water tier rate study as well?
Yes.
So that's next on the list here. Who's gonna? Are you gonna?
Yeah, I can jump right into that if you guys are ready.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's just discussion at this point.
Okay, perfect. And can you see this PowerPoint slide?
We can see it.
Okay. I just wanted to highlight some assumptions before I show you the PDF of our preliminary scenario evaluation to get feedback. So what we're looking at is revenue neutrality in this model. So we have not, we have set the revenue target to equal what we experienced in 2025 based on all the data we received. So right now, the structure that I'm going to show you does not pull the rates down to achieve what we showed in that PDF that showed a potential decrease in the water rate revenue. So that's one decision the council will have to wrestle with is, do we pull those rates down, or do we say, no, let's hold off, keep our rates revenue neutral while still achieving a tiering structure? Again, that's something we'll need some direction on what you'd like to see happen relative to this scenario.
When you say revenue neutral, does that include things like repairing water main breaks, and doing maintenance of the system? Or is it merely, we're breaking even without the maintenance and repair of the system?
It accounts for depreciation of the system. So it's not a direct capital improvement plan, but it does account for the expenses that are allotted in that cost allocation strategy, plus an allocation of depreciation, which is a representation of capital repair and replacement. So in the absence of a master plan and a fully fledged capital improvement plan, we've included that depreciation element. So it keeps the revenues consistent with that plan, as well as what you've generated from a revenue perspective. But if I go back to this memo, when we look at overall cost allocation, what it looks like from a combined utility perspective is we may be allocating cost a little bit heavy towards water versus storm, sewer, and standby. And so the redistribution of that suggests standby rates go up, storm rates go up, sewer rates go up, but water could go down and still achieve our objectives relative to the inclusion of the expenses projected in 2025 and the depreciation allocation in 2025. What it doesn't do, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and Jonathan, to answer your question directly, we do include depreciation as a fixed expense in lieu of capital improvements in the future, but we also include repairs and maintenance in the fixed costs. So your general repairs and maintenance are covered in the fixed cost.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Alrighty. So in addition, we are looking at a revenue distribution between customer classes based on overall usage proportionality. So trying to match statistics that Katie's provided relative to usage suggests that we generate about 60% of our demand from residential, 20% from multifamily, and 20% from irrigation customers. We also applied based on input. We're looking at tiering multipliers that are aggressive as we get into higher tiers, and that's consistently applied across all customer classes. So the multiplier for residential multifamily irrigation is the same for each of those tiers, and I'll show you what that looks like. We're also looking at cost allocation, assuming that the base rate needs to cover about 800,000 of that kind of fixed allocation, and the remaining revenue generation to get us to our 1.25 million comes from usage rates across all customers. Also, our base rates are equivalent across all user classes. So we set a base rate to achieve that objective relative to our that fixed expense, and then apply that uniformly across all users. For multifamily, we're assuming the unit count in the evaluation, but we show that as an average rate for the number of buildings. But we do account for the number of units.
Moment, I just want to make sure, does that mean that each metered connection will share equally in the costs of the maintenance and repair of the plumbing distribution system?
Yeah, all of the fixed expenses that we've allocated, yes, they're contributing equally to that.
Terrific, thank you.
And then when we look at our tiering rates, those are unique. So we couldn't achieve a methodology that allowed us to apply the same rate for each tier for each customer class. It just didn't work relative to the proportionality. So the actual cost or rate for each tier, which within each customer class, is unique. So the residential tiering rates are different than the multifamily tiering rates and the irrigation tiering rates, all intended to achieve that proportional revenue distribution of 60-20-20, essentially. So it is an attempt to get to that proportionality. Alrighty, so those are our base assumptions. And now I'd like to go through our tiering evaluation. So here what we did is, again, we applied looked at usage and looked at input from you relative to what you'd like to see the tiers, relative to the allotted water in each of those tiers, and then established a structure that allowed us to achieve the fixed allocation of cost and the usage allocation of cost while trying to get to that 60% revenue distribution. So our unit charge base rate would be $77.20. That doesn't include any water usage. Tier 1 would start at 0 to 4,000 gallons, which represents the approximate average user. So they would stay in tier 1, and then the tiers go up based on this multiplier. So it gets punitive as you get into tier 6, with a total revenue generation from residential customers of $748,000. That represents about 60% of the allocated total cost, which is reflective of total demand on the system. When you look at revenue from existing, it's actually a little bit higher. So here you can see right now we generate 814,000 based on your existing rates. So there would be a slight decrease, which that decrease is really applied to your general user. So if you're staying with an average or slightly below average and at average, you would likely experience a decrease in your overall bill. But it does shift some of that proportionality to these higher users here, which again I think is the objective that was expressed to us, to make those higher tiers a little more punitive relative to revenue generation and cost allocation. So this would be this is the proposed rates thus far under this scenario relative to the residential customer. Alrighty. Here it shows kind of the impact of that. Again, if you have an average user is slightly below. The average is somewhere around actually 3.3. We set the first tier slightly above average. But here you can see under your existing rate, they'd be assessed 94.90. Under the proposed rate, the average user would be assessed 83.82. So you're a user that stays at or slightly above average would experience a decrease. Your higher users would experience an increase to their overall bill. Okay, so now we look at multifamily. Here we looked at trying to establish tiers that reflect some average usage while removing some outliers. This is an expression of the rate, which is assuming an average rate, right, across all 185 units divided by 17. Or sorry, yeah, 185 residential family units over 17 buildings. So the actual base rate would be multiplied by number of units within that specific building times the $77.20 that we established in the residential category. Here you can see to achieve our objective relative to our cost distribution and revenue allocation at 20%, we'd be able to use that $77.20 as our base rate per unit, and then we'd establish these rates here. And that would result in a total revenue generation of about $250 million here on this side, or sorry, $250,000, not 250 million. And we have the same outcome here where we have, because of the punitive nature of the rate structure, that it gets more aggressive as we get into tier 6. Then you see there's a somewhat disproportionate revenue generation out here in tier 6, that we've got those high users paying for that water use out on this side. What we did notice under this approach is that there is essentially it's revenue neutral, because your multifamily customers are generating about the 20% allocated cost. And so what we're noticing is that if we apply this approach and are consistent with that application, that it looks like all of your customers get a reduction in their bill, which Katie pointed out just doesn't make sense, right? That when we compare a low user, an average user, and a very high user, their bills all look to be going down.
Well, you did adjust the low user one. It's going up from 803 to 950.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's right. Before we had like 60,000 or 60 units there. Yeah, so what we've noticed is what's happening is, as Katie's pointed out, is your low user, anything below that average, is actually going to experience an increase because of the base rate allocation. Again, right now, your revenue distribution within your multifamily units, you're at the majority of your revenue for multifamily. If you look at this schedule here, this is your existing rates. Only $37,000 comes from your base rate. So it's very weighted towards usage for your multifamily units. Whereas if we apply the fixed allocation and assume a base rate across all units that's uniform, the allocation of the base rate goes up, resulting in that shift in burden across all users. So your low users are going to bear a little bit more of that because they're paying more in the base rate than they had before. So that's really what's happening. So we need to determine, are we okay with that, or do you want to see something different? Again, we try to apply uniform principles across all customers based on the feedback we received and the idea of conservation. So there would be a shift if we move forward with this. There would be a shift for multifamily in that the base rate would bear a larger portion of the burden on this customer class. So that's what's happening here.
It's my understanding that our multifamily units typically use more water than a single family unit. which I understand to be a little unusual. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, it does look like the average per unit is slightly higher. So when we looked at that with Katie, your average use for single family residential is around that 3,300, 3,500 gallons, whereas your multifamily is over, it's somewhere between 4,800 and 5,300. So it is higher. But again, what's happening is because that's already skewed, your existing fee structure is already skewed to be almost fully reliant on usage revenue here. The fact that we're just shifting towards more base allocation, it doesn't allow us to, to have a rate structure that that keeps that proportion of usage revenue that you currently have. It's just shifting now to more fixed allocation. So again, if we don't want to see that happen, then we'd have to look at maybe applying a different base rate to our multifamily and then push more on usage to get something more that's reflective of your current fee structure. But again, we wanted to apply our methodology more uniformly across all customer classes. So that's why this is happening. Essentially, your
Fred, did you look at any other, sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you look at any other models, as a comparison here that began at like the average, which is, I think, closer to 6,000 as a beginning point, and understand how that looks, because I think we're just dealing with one model here, so. Any other comparisons we have?
When you're talking, are you talking about comparisons to other communities or?
No, I'm talking about comparisons to starting at a different base amount.
Yeah, right now, I mean, there's really unlimited scenarios I could run through. So that's where we would potentially need some direction. We essentially wanted to show you what the outcome would be relative to what we feel like was the preliminary guidance relative to establishing a tiering structure. But we can, we can set the tiering's different for these customer or for this customer class, for all of the customer classes. If you allow more water, so essentially what happens if you allow the tiering to be more, if you allowed more use in those tiering structures, then either the revenue goes down, right, on the usage side, which means our base rate has to go up to keep us revenue neutral, or the rates have to go up to allow us to produce the same amount of revenue. So again, our primary target is $1.25 million of total revenue generation. So if you manipulate one side of that equation, then the other side has to be adjusted to keep us revenue neutral. So that's something to consider. So right now we haven't provided additional scenarios yet.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get moving. We're past our allotted here, but I'd certainly like to see one other comparison and understand how that model would look comparatively. I mean,
In general, we're trying to reward low usage, right?
I get that.
Yeah, I understand the
We wanna use a carrot.
multivariable problem here, so yeah.
We wanna use a carrot to get people to conserve.
It's good to start at the absolute average.
Yeah.
So, let's look at another, let's do the math. It shouldn't be very complicated.
Well, yes, I guess to clarify, what do you, so I think the idea is to allow more usage in our multifamily
Get the
tiering,
fixed base rate, yeah.
and then,
Yeah, because I think so far, we've been capping things at 10,000 and then the rate goes up. So understand the floor picture, but it's a little bit below the average. So let's run a base rate starting at 6.
so you do want to allow usage in our base rate, or you're talking about tier 1?
Tier 1, yeah.
About 6,000 gallons or maybe 60,000 units, assuming there's
Yeah, I'd
about.
like to see what the numbers look like at that point.
Okay, do you, then as another clarifying question, with that is the intent to, reduce the amount that we're charging or to or to multifamily, or do we still want to keep it revenue neutral? But again, just change our rates so that maybe our higher customers are paying a little more. Is that?
Well, we have to maintain revenue neutrality and so I'm not sure what the change would look like until I look at the number.
Sure, that makes sense. So we'll look at it maybe a little more.
Yeah, I think the town would want at least two options here to look at so that they have a comparison.
Okay.
And
We'll
I
look at
would
that.
put it up at 8, I would put it like 4 and 6. Because, yeah, at least it's somewhere in the middle range for that.
Yeah, and that is what we've done with residential. We have it going from 4. It's tier 1 is at 4,000, and then tier 2 is 4 to 8,000.
Yeah, just trying to ward off any other issues that our residents might have, you know, so just showing one tier structure. To me doesn't, may not make a lot of people, you know, enthused about this tiering.
Okay.
So, yeah, let's just look at an option here, Fred, please.
Okay, and then in the interest of time, I'll just go through irrigation real quickly. What's happening here is we're seeing it based on applying those principles. We are putting quite a bit of weight on our tier 6 because there's what's happening is we have a peak use customer that uses a lot of water during our summer months, and that causes them to go into tier 6 pretty quickly. And so you can see here, based on this recommendation, our revenues in that tier 6 are almost half of the overall revenue generation from this customer class. So there was some concern about that, and that's kind of where we wanted to get some feedback from you, as if maybe an alternative option, again, going to that idea of two options. What we could look at here is maybe massaging the ratios, at least for this customer, to account for that peak use that is required, and distribute the revenue a little more balanced across our tiers so that it's not as much in that 6th tier. So just want to get your thoughts on maybe that.
I'd rather not target any particular customer. I want to create neutral classes that apply to everyone. And so, in my view, if you're using 6 times average, that the prices should escalate for that. And I don't know, Tom, but I don't want to single out any individual owner. I want to treat everybody the same and have one class. But if you're using an enormous amount of water, I don't have a problem with it being expensive because I want to encourage conservation because water is a problem.
Yeah, but I guess the tiering isn't quite like, if you know, if we're starting, for example, our first tier goes to 50,000 gallons is our cutoff point. Then 6 times that, right, is going to be 300,000 gallons of use in our tier 6. So right now it's more punitive than that. So it's showing we're trying to yeah, it's just a little more aggressive on the irrigation side because because that peak usage for a lot of customers. So if you're okay with this, that's great. I mean, I think we can still provide an alternative scenario if you'd like to look at that. But again, applying the same principles and the same multipliers here that we've applied to all other customer classes, it does put a lot of impact on our tier 6 use. So some entities will evaluate that. So that's a policy decision.
I like applying the same multipliers across the board. I don't see a reason to differentiate it. Does anybody else?
You know, I think this user has a pool, is that correct? So are we, you know, I mean, are we, I guess, unduly saying that if you have a pool, that your rates are gonna be kind of in the stratosphere? so some towns, at least that I've been in, where there's a lot of pools, they have a rate for pools. And so I don't know what Utah does. I'm just talking about New Jersey, New York. They do that. So I'm seeing Corbin shake his head. Is that,
I haven't seen anything, particularly up here because there's not many pools.
there's not many pools?
Yeah, I just haven't seen a rate that's
Yeah.
different than that and,
The
water.
the only reason I can think of a difference in rate between residential use and irrigation use is residential use, we're also really offsetting some of the sewer cost, right? Where in irrigation, you're not,
And.
especially in a pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You get that.
Are we offsetting the cost though? I mean, we have now segregated the water fund into its respective water, sewer, storm and standby. So by doing so, I don't think we are subsidizing. Fred?
Okay, so you're separating that out now. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what, when Fred came up with the fixed cost for this, we have now a fixed cost for water, we have one for sewer, one for storm and one for standby. So that makes it a lot more separate. So we aren't, the multifamily and irrigation, it's being fed by the exact same water system. And they're both using plus or minus 100,000, a little over 10 million gallons. So I don't think it is. Fred, can you confirm that?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're not.
You know, whether you're using water for a pool, a hot tub to irrigate,
Doesn't matter.
your rock garden, whatever it is, I don't think it matters. I think this should be driven by the price, by the volume. And the more you use, the higher the price should be, a lot higher the price should be, so that we encourage conservation. Water is a problem here, and we need to encourage people to use it wisely and conserve it whenever possible. And how you use it is up to you. Put it in your pool, your hot tub, or your garden, I don't care. But we just want you to conserve and use less.
Yeah, so to put it into context, let me jump back up to our residential user. So the residential user, our tier 6 allocation, if we assume these multipliers, again, the intent was to achieve that objective, which you just stated, which was pay for water, but also pay a lot more if you use more. So it's not just pay more, it's pay a lot more. And what that means is looking at these variables, for example, right now under this structure, your tier 6 would contribute to 50% of your usage revenue. So not in total, but just looking at how much they're contributing of usage revenue, that tier 6 would contribute 50% of the revenue. When you look at the units billed, they're only accounting for about 12% of the usage. So it does achieve what you just described, which is if you use more, you're going to pay a lot more. So I think what I'm trying to show is, do we feel that's too punitive, or do we want to pull that back and say, well, if we're using 12%, maybe they're going to contribute to 25% of the overall revenue, which means these other customers that use average and above average are going to foot a little bit more of the bill, because we're going to pull it out of tier 6 and push it into those tier 1 through 5. So, and that's consistent across the board. So we are tier 6 is generating, if we go to like irrigation, they're generating 16% of the units when we look at billable units and the analysis here. But they're going to generate 56% of the revenue, the usage revenue. So it is very punitive. I'm just hoping
Right, because the issue there is the multifamily has 185 units and we're billing them for 185 units at the $77. Irrigation only has 32, so they're only getting 32. So their fixed costs are a lot lower, unless there's a different way that we would want to assign a usage for each irrigation system.
So in the interest of time, I guess, going back to that idea of providing alternative scenarios, what we can look at is massaging the tiers to allow maybe a little bit more than average usage in some of these cases. And then I can show you what a schedule looks like and send a similar PDF that has maybe not as much reliance on tier 6 revenue, and that's something you can decide from a policy perspective.
That sounds good. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it.
course.
Yeah, the goal is to conserve water and we need a conservation plan to help residents with exactly that goal. And right now we don't have that in place.
Yeah,
So, but we need to soon. And I have seen JSSD's program. It's not exactly easy to follow, but I think we'll need to develop our own here.
yeah. Perfect. Okay, we will get that prepared and sent over.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is
Number 5.
discussion of the grammar process and Mickey, are you on?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening. Since my item is not time sensitive for the council, would you like me to postpone this for the next meeting? Because you've been going over time.
I think you own the 15 minutes. If you want to give them up, Mickey, that's fine. Is there any quick comments you'd like to make? And we can move this over to the April meeting, I guess.
Let's move it to the April meeting. Let me send the council the deck I wanted to share. So maybe we can retake that again in April and everybody's up to speed. It's just, I'm sensitive to your schedule today.
Well, that's very nice and fair. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do that.
15 minutes, yeah, appreciate it.
Okay.
And so let's just make sure we have that on for the next, agenda.
Yes.
Okay, so next on the list is the Utopia consideration and possible authorization of tailoring the franchise agreement. Holly and Nicole, are you on?
Come on.
Oh, I'm not Nicole, but I'm with Utopia. Oh, sorry for the downgrade. I'm Roger Timmerman with, I'm the executive director and CEO of Utopia. And we just want to talk about this franchise agreement. When we do these with cities, I like to kind of come and explain who we are, what our plans are, why we're here. So I'm happy to do that. And then also just kind of talking about the process that got us here with the franchise agreement. So franchise agreement's pretty standard. If you were to look at what's in the packet, I think you actually have a red line version. It's like, here's the Comcast franchise agreement, you know, striking out and just with the Utopia specific stuff in there. Basically just gives us permission to be in the city, use right of ways, public utility easements to put conduit fiber, throughout the community. Our relationship with the town's gone back a while. I was looking at my old emails and, I was here regularly in like 2018. As there was a broadband committee and they were trying to figure out how to get something here, and there was a lot of different stuff. There was an RFP. We had been the recommended option, but our option had a caveat. We are a public agency. We're not a company. We are an interlocal entity, which is a partnership of governmental entities. And so it required a partnership with the town. And with that, it's like, we're not going to go build a project citywide and put other cities on the hook for it. So there was a financial commitment from the town if it didn't pay for itself with enough subscribers. There were different models to do it. There could be a fee. That's been shut down by the legislature since that time, so it's not allowed. But we could do just, those who signed up could pay for service when there was enough. It would fall back onto the town. Anyways, the city council voted. It was tied, and the tiebreaker vote by the mayor, their Zoom dropped out, ironically. And so the motion failed. There was a counter proposal by All West to come in and provide services in the city. And so they said, we're gonna sit back and allow them to provide services, see how that goes. And they have built the service throughout the town, I believe. So
was Xfinity.
Yeah, so you have that here. So then it's like, okay, so why is Utopia here? So initially we were here because of UDOT. UDOT needed the route built up the highway and asked us to do that for them. We do a lot of builds in their behalf and do a lot of trading and partnership As a governmental entity, we work really well with, cities, counties, UDOT, the state, for other types of state, services. We do tons of public safety stuff, like we do wildfire cameras, we do public Wi-Fi, we are #1 with the school system in the state, lots of things like that. So whenever there's opportunity for us to come into an area and have pencils, we'll still do that. We're also a favorite from a lot of developers. They like our builds because they're the cleanest of any provider. And what I mean by that is we don't do any above surface pedestals or boxes or all that stuff that clutters your front yards and things. Basically it's like a sprinkler box or a little tiny, we call it flower pot, but we don't put flowers in. So a lot of developers approach us and say, hey, we want to have you guys come in here as we build these developments. And if we can make it work, we can get it connected to our network. We'll do it, and we'll do it at our cost. And so that's what we have been doing, to some extent in Hideout. There are some areas, where we put conduit in with new developments, and then we have some, you know, we have what's called Black Rock or whatever, it's one highway, and so, a couple onesie twosie little areas here and there where the developers have wanted us to be in there. When we put it in there, we're wholesale only, so we build it. But any of the private companies out there, the broadband providers, are the ones that actually provide a service. So there's always choice and competition whenever we build fiber. So anyways, it's not a bad thing to have it there. It also kind of helps keep All West honest to some extent. You know, they're a private equity owned entity, so they're one to keep an eye on. You know, they're raising rates and other things like that. So far they've been good though. So if I were to be like, oh, you made a terrible mistake, well, you have, they're providing a good service. But if they were ever to come around and say, hey, you know what, we're gonna jack your prices up or have bad service, or they were having regular outages or reliability issues, it'd be nice, you know, because we're here and it'd be easy for us to come back and do some project in the future with this. So anyways, the request really is just to consider us, you know, even though our model's a little different, we're governmental. The request is to just do the same thing as you would with any other provider like Comcast or All West, and allow us access to the rights of way. If there's ever any problems with it, we feel like we're really responsive and we care a lot about the quality. As a public entity, we are essentially owned by the public, so it matters to us a lot if you're getting complaints with construction or obstacles in people's way or things like that, because we're community owned basically. So we want to be good stewards of our assets in the ground and good partners with the town, and we'll comply with the terms of the agreement just like anyone else. But with that, that's about all we have. I just, you know, like to introduce who we are and why we're here, and if you have any questions for us, happy to do that. But otherwise, we just ask for approval so we can get some of, we have some stuff that was damaged that we would need to repair. That's the current permit. The town is working through that with us, even without the executed agreement. But we'd like to be able to continue to do things in the future. Questions?
One of the issues we had when Comcast came in, they damaged several All West installations. Several of my neighbors had their servers cut when they were boring. And All West, I think, ended up footing the bill to fix it. And I don't know if they're litigating outside of that. All West.
Yeah, we submit a lot of damage claims with Comcast.
Yeah. So, when I was reading the agreement, the only thing that would seem to cover that is the insurance part, the sort of the liability issue. So I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's an issue between the providers, right? I mean, All West should be able to recover all their damage.
When you guys come in, if you're gonna put in fiber, because we already got 2 fiber providers there already, there's a chance you could, you know, your subcontractors could damage stuff. Would you, your process for repairing that? Have you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We deal with that all the time. Like, we were building all over the place.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I'd love to say we've developed a method of construction that never breaks other people's stuff, but it happens.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, we're responsive. We have generally a very good reputation with cities. You know, to the point to, like, the most recent one we did with Bountiful, we said, you know, all the other providers come in here and they have their own energy utilities. We've had strikes and problems and road issues and whatever, but Utopia was the cleanest installation of anyone they've had come through the city. Now, we take a lot of pride in that, but we're not 100%. We're just really good.
Well, it's just,
Most-
it's more the making good on it rather than
Yeah, well,
getting
definitely.
a situation we have as a contrast and all that.
Yeah, they'll take care of it. I mean, there are times when, I say we bill Comcast for damages they do to us, but that goes both ways. And
Right.
We take responsibility for the work that we do. And it's usually very clear. I mean, we have to call in the work, it has to get marked. What we mark our lines, for example, in the city whenever there's construction, so when there is a damage, it's like, well, was it marked? Was it marked correctly? Sometimes it's the fault of the company not marking or not marking correctly for their existing lines. That's usually where the disputes get in there and fight over who's responsible, but we do that all the time. It's very normal business.
Do you have any stats on your uptime? So, or downtime, I'd say?
Yeah.
Compared to your competitors, and two questions.
I don't have, go ahead. Sir.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, because I had asked this to the other providers. And that is, where are you in the state and other towns? You mentioned Bountiful, I think, as an example, so a couple of, where are you and how do you compare with your downtime versus, in this case, All West and Xfinity?
Yeah, so our guarantees are 5 nines reliability, which is 99.999. We see that. We are how do you see that publicly? It's basically through reviews, right? Like people are having outages and problems all the time and get bad score. So we're 4.6 stars on Google, which is the highest in the state. So we're very popular. People love our service, and it's actually built differently than others. I don't want to bag on All West. I mean, it's a valid construction method, but micro trenching does keep it closer to the surface, and is more likely to get hit and have outages. It's also a pond system, which is shared, and so there's different issues of reliability there, where one bad connection can take out a whole group of customers. Ours are all dedicated fiber. They're all installed side of road, deeper, more of a traditional board methodology. Although we love to go into open trench, so that's what mostly are doing at this point. But if we had the right customer or something like we're to connect the city office, and that would be in your build, we'd have to forward that in. If you guys want a service, let's talk about that. But and things like fire stations, things like we do that all over the place, and that's not just for our citywide projects. There's a lot of cities in the state that have chosen to use us for their own facilities, even though they didn't want to do a citywide broadband project. So you asked, where are we in the state? We have 21 citywide projects in the state. They go from Tremont up in the north, Brigham City, and kind of just a lot of cities along the Wasatch Front, going all the way down to Payson in Utah County. So like I showed you a map, it'd be like, it's not all of the cities, but it's like maybe half of the cities along that area. And then we have like some down in southern Utah. We have Santa Clara, for example, some of our citywide projects. We have Idaho Falls, Bozeman, Montana. They're branded differently, like Bozeman is branded as Yellowstone Fiber. And Idaho Falls is just Idaho Falls Fiber, but we design those and operate them. And then we have, so that's like 21 in Utah, 23 total. We're building a bunch of stuff in California now, and then we have fiber, what we call middle mile and anchor institution fiber in over 100 cities. And that's basically every single city along the Wasatch Front, down to Santa Quinn, and all the way up to even past Tremont, but we go over into Logan and those cities over there. And then we're here, we have, like Kimball Junction, we have Heber, Morgan, Morgan's a citywide project. So we just have a lot of kind of backbone routes for getting schools and city facilities, county, state, things like that, but then the citywide projects among those. We have service available to about 280,000 locations. Makes us one of the top probably third in the state. For number of availability.
So our code, our town code prohibits above ground structures. Everything has to be underground. You represented it, you'll do it underground. I just want to make sure that you understand that the contract incorporates our town code. Our town code says you can't do anything above ground so that everything will be below ground. And this is because our views are our most valuable asset. And I just want to make sure that you're,
Is it good use here?
take a look. I invite you.
No, I love it.
I invite you. But I just want to make sure that we're 100% clear on this point, that everything's gonna be underground. There may be a little inch or two sticking up from a box or something, but everything you put in is gonna be underground.
Yeah, I'd say the only exception is our electronics. So we have like a fiber shelter that's either a cabinet
For the
or a
transceiver.
walk-in for the equipment.
Yeah.
But that's not in front of homes or in the neighborhoods. That's just,
How big
that's
is
like an
this?
aggregation.
How big is this thing?
It's about this big, and the cabinet is what we're using. And
How far
the
up?
developer gave us a spot for it.
How far off the ground does it stick up?
I mean, about this high.
And where would you propose to put it?
I think it's already installed. It's
Oh,
find it. Been there for a couple of
the
years.
last thing you wanna do is interfere with anybody's view.
Well, if you haven't heard any complaints about it.
Well, that I'm aware of.
Yeah, no, I mean, the housing developer wouldn't have allowed us to stick in front of the house or something, right?
I don't know. I just wanna make sure that we're not, we do have a requirement that things have to be underground. I wanna make sure,
So the fiber facilities are, like, I mentioned there's none of those, like Comcast like to put those big green basket boxes that are about this big. And then All West usually puts in these green pedestal plastic things that are about this tall. We don't do any of that. All our stuff it's a sprinkler box flush with the ground.
what's, okay,
And that's because that's what cities want, right? And housing developers, they don't want those other boxes.
okay, because above ground is a problem, below ground is just great. And I just wanna make sure that we're
So,
abundantly clear up front, because the contract incorporates our town code. Our town code says stuff
there's a
has to be
way-
underground.
I mean, none of the providers are gonna be putting like electronics underground. Those have gotta go in some sort of a building or a cabinet or something. So I don't know, is there language that covers?
Believe there's some language about a certain height, because there's some kind of national code on it. There's an exception.
Well, that is a good point. I'm on your side of like, I think cities should have every right to regulate their public utility easements. But unfortunately, there's a lot of national.
We understand there's federal preemption, we get that, but.
But we're not gonna push it.
We need to be underground stuff, and I just wanna make sure that we're both on the same page. That the contract incorporates our code, and our code says it's gotta be underground.
Yeah, so our design anticipated a single cabinet for the whole town. And so my understanding is we have one, it's been there for years. I don't have. The map wasn't working. Not working, but, I can follow up with that, just be like, hey, here it is, just so we're clear. And make sure there's no issues with it, but
No additional boxes.
yeah, we don't have a condition.
Okay,
Yeah, we're not gonna make you take out of it because
no,
obviously the front of it.
but this is a big issue for the town.
Yeah.
It's our views.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, for the rest of the council's information, as an IT solution architect, 5 nines is
That's the gold standard.
the gold standard.
Gives us like 4
I had
minutes
to
a year.
design and build systems for the FAA at that, and that's higher than the military, okay? Your commercial communication providers do 3 nines. So you've got, which is good, your backbone is basically solid, and if there's an outage, it's most likely the service provider or the actual content. Because they're only gonna be 3 nines. So that's 2 orders of magnitude better, so that's more than good enough. 1 order of magnitude is usually enough, so that's impressive. Both companies don't.
Yeah, I mean, our entire network is a carrier Ethernet system. It's not a residential grade. System as they're typically built. It's built like every customer is an enterprise type customer. That's just the way we treat it. We have lots of critical customers on there, including like the state data center, we have public safety buildings, we have 911 centers on our network, things like that. So we have to build all of our fiber huts and cabinets with backup generator, batteries, we've done an air conditioning, heating systems. Like it's a very hardened.
There's a lot of redundancy built into that, I understand that, yeah, so that's impressive. I like that.
I like 5 nines too, been there with AWS or.
Yeah.
Yeah, same
It's
thing.
not easy to achieve.
Yeah, you want perfection, but yeah, that's what, 4 minutes a year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So in any
And
case,
that's
we've got to
system
move on.
wide, right?
That-
There are like times, like there's a fiber cut in your neighborhood, it's gonna last longer
Well,
than
yeah.
4 minutes, and then you can request credits and back on that, but statistically across the network, we achieve it, we just don't achieve it on a individual basis, and that becomes a credit situation.
So we're looking for, and Corbin, I'm gonna rely on you here, consideration possible authorization. Is this a vote by council for?
Yes.
For exactly, you want to vote, right? Okay,
Yes.
so, unless there's any other questions or discussions, does anyone like to make a motion here?
I'll move that we adopt the contract as written with all the red line changes. Obviously, we can take the red line out of it for the final version, but the version that was supplied to tonight, I would motion to approve.
I'll second.
Bob?
Yes.
And I'm present. And he's present, so counter me. And
Brought presents?
Carol
Yes.
and Tanya
Yes.
and Brian
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
So, next item, so we've been here, it's now, what time is it?
7:14 or 7:11.
We've been here over 2 hours. Do we want to take a 5-minute break?
That'd be great. Yeah, sounds good.
So we're on break for until what time?
Sorry. 7:14 now, so 7:19 and 7:20.
Make it 7:20.
Apparently, you're free to vacate the premises. Is this, can you get around this chair?
Yeah,
I'm good.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, back on, talk about food later. Okay, we're back. And the next item is Katie, you on? You wanna walk us through this no more than 20 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Are you bringing it up?
I am, yes.
Okay. I took a little bit of different approach this time. Instead of giving you a lot of numbers, I gave you some charts and graphs to kind of show you where we're spending all of our money. And then that's the top left-hand quadrant. And then the bottom left-hand quadrant is the variances to budget. Oops, I'll wait till you bring it up.
Got close then. Do you want to drive, Katie?
Yeah, you can. I'll tell you when to turn the page.
You're good, you're great.
Turn the page.
Why? There you go.
There you go. So the upper left-hand side, you can see where we're spending all of our money. Total revenue, this is a revenue only page. Revenue of 2.4 million consists primarily of funds from MIDA, where we're going to pull some funds from our MIDA municipal and potentially some of our MIDA development, as well as building permits, property and sales, and energy taxes. So you can see proportionally, our biggest money coming in is the MIDA. And the MIDA is really the property taxes from the MIDA zones, which are Deer Springs, Deer Waters, Lakeview, and Claim. All of our property taxes go to the MIDA Development and MIDA Municipal Fund. And we're going to be using a lot of the MIDA Municipal Fund. We can use that for the general fund because it all goes into the same group of revenue that we're using for expenses to cover things like our repairs and maintenance, salaries, admin, legal costs. So we are about 206,000 favorable variance, and it's driven by predominantly the 273,000 additional funds that we are taking from MIDA. And that's mostly to cover the legal settlement. We have some legal settlements that we are potentially going to settle within the next couple of months, as well as one that we settled back in November. So we have approximately 270, or we have approximately, you'll see in the expenses, about $290,000 of legal costs, legal settlement costs. We have 41,000 higher sales tax due to an increase in residential spend. We have 33,000 higher property taxes due to incremental assessed value, 27,000 incremental license and building permit fees, primarily due to favorable building permit revenue, primarily offset by fewer subdivision and inspection fees. We also have some negative variances to budget, which are 43,000 reduced cash and investment accounts and delayed issuance of town code violation citations. $50,000 of grant revenue. We thought we were going to get grant revenue, but in actuality, we got it as credits to expense. So you see the unfavorability up here in the revenue section, but you'll see the favorability on the next page. And then we also lost about $75,000 of interest deferral to future years versus recognition in the current year, which was associated with some prior year as well as the current year interest that we took that we now need to take to prepaid, and we'll get that interest down the road. Then you have the expenses. So if we had 206,000 favorable in revenue, we're going to have 206,000 unfavorable in expenses. And our expenses are primarily consisting of employee costs, legal cost and legal settlement, building permit expense, street repairs and maintenance, as well as safety, which is our police and animal control, professional costs, which are our engineering, communications, grant and debt expense. So we're 206,000 unfavorable in the expense section, and that's primarily due to $288,000 that has been required to settle 2 legal actions. One we have settled and one we are going to be settling, hopefully in the near future. We had 55,000 higher building permit expenses, and that's primarily due to we don't have as many repeat plans, and repeat plans don't cost as much as standalone plans. So when you have a repeat plan, it takes a lot less time to review than standalone or single plans that are from new developments. 42,000 higher legal expense to settle legal actions, 32,000 higher engineering, and that's primarily to support the water study, the capital plans, and ongoing initiatives. And 31,000 unfavorable due to returning, we had some leased trucks that we decided to return the leased trucks and purchase 2 trucks. So we are a little unfavorable there. We're hoping to make it up when we sell the trucks over the next, hopefully next month. We have a positive variance to budget, and it's primarily due to grant matching. I told you we had unfavorable in the revenue. Now we have favorable in the expense. So net bottom line, it had no impact to us. And then we had 177,000 savings in professional costs. We are doing the Ross Creek Advisory. We saved 72,000, website development about 30,000, as well as we had fewer subdivision inspection projects. So that 65,000 kind of offsets the unfavorability in revenue. So we have a lot of things that, you know, we've got revenues associated with it, that obviously it's supposed to be cost neutral across the board for a lot of things that we do in the general fund. So you have the opposite in the expense area where we have unfavorability in the subdivision fees that we get. We then have favorability in our subdivision inspection projects. So net, we're going to be flat to budget, but that does require us to use more MIDA funds than we are hoping to use this year. There are some opportunities and risks. Now, I do want to point out that what I just said is that the budget is flat, but we are using $273,000 more than we wanted to from the MIDA funds. Expenses are going to exceed the budget, and that's primarily due to the legal settlement that will come in the near future, as well as past legal settlements, as well as our legal costs. So we are going to have to discuss the implications of the excess spend. So when your expenses exceed your budget, we just have to explain that and do a little more paperwork with the state. But there are some potential opportunities that we are going to be monitoring over the next couple of months. We've got potential opportunities of 200 to 300,000. You know, we could hope to reduce a little bit of our engineering projects, reduce some communications projects, can have consultants and less meetings. I'm hoping, even though I did say we had some revenue favorability or unfavorability, expense favorability, we did spend about $50,000 this year on grant matching. So we might be able to take some of that against the development fund for MIDA. So we might be able to get some of that back in the general fund. We have a potential sales tax opportunity because people continue to spend. And we've got some accruals out there for January and February. We're hoping that the numbers will come in a little bit higher and our year over year might be a little bit higher. We've got some planning fees. If our run rate continues, we might have another $10,000 to $15,000 in planning fees. If we move forward with the citation software company to start processing violations and holding people that are violating accountable, we might be able to collect $5,000 to $10,000 more, or $5,000 to $10,000, because we're starting that process shortly to be able to enforce some of the violations that are happening from residents and or developers. We might have some additional fees and excavation fees if Elkhorn, Deer Springs 3, or Shoreline start some horizontal work. Delinquent property taxes. Last year, we received a lot in delinquent property taxes, about 175,000 in excess of what we thought we were going to get. We don't have those type of delinquent property taxes. A lot of those were paid last year, but we might get some additional. That could be another 10 to 50,000. And we're monitoring that closely and working with Wasatch to assess what that might be over the next couple of months. But we don't expect the same as what we got last year. Review cost purchased 2 trucks with auditor. We did have some costs that 30% of the cost did have to go into the general fund for the purchase of those 2 new trucks. I'm trying to determine if those can go as a prepaid over the next 7 years, or do they have to be expensed this year because depreciation is taken in our government expense fund. And then we do have some prior year standby fees that we're trying to assess if we can go back and charge. If we can get some additional revenue. But you also have the offsetting potential risks and fewer standby fees if we can't bill with what we thought we wanted to bill for these standby fees that we haven't charged in the past. We have some legal costs. We could have another 25 to 40,000 in legal costs. We've got some transition work going on between lawyers, and we also are in the process of settling, hopefully, a second lawsuit. Subdivision inspection fees will be about 10,000 potentially if we do get some additional subcontractor, if we don't get some additional subdivision fees being paid or expenses being incurred associated with those fees over the next 3 or 4 months. We also might have fewer building permits. We have not had many building permits since December. As of mid-February, I think there was only 1 or 2 building permits in that 2-month time frame. I did not check what has occurred over the last 2 weeks, or actually that was at the end of February. So I haven't checked over the last 2 weeks, but our building permits are slowing down considerably. So we do have some opportunities and risks. We are looking at those very carefully. We're monitoring them, and we're working with Ralph and Jan to try and assess how it is that we can get ourselves back on flat to an expense budget. We have the enterprise fund, which is the water fund. We were kind of talking through a lot of that with Fred and trying to assess our increases for storm, sewer, standby, and potentially water. This forecast does not include any new rates for any of those at this point in time. The only thing that this forecast has at this point in time is the sewer increase rate from JSSD that we had to start paying in January. So that was an extra $25,000 a year or a month. And then hopefully when we increase the stormwater utility rates in March, we'll be able to make up that deficit. But that is the expenses in there for March through June, and the revenue or the expense from JSSD, unfortunately, is in there from January through June. So we do have 2 months that we are not going to be able to make up at this point in time. So I want to make sure you guys know that those aren't in there. There's some potential for some upside in the enterprise fund associated with those utility rate increases. So we have total revenues of 2.3 million, which consists primarily of fees from water, sewer, storm, and standby, as well as water sewer connection fees associated with building permits. And then we have some interest, meter rental, and water transfer fees. We are 51,000 favorable to revenue, which is primarily driven by higher sewer. Oh, you know what? I think that should say, no, we are favorable. We are favorable. That's primarily driven by higher sewer fees charged to residents resulting from incremental JSSD charges to the town. Partially offsetting this favorability are lower connection fees of $39,000 due to fewer building permits. So we are doing well in the enterprise fund, and we're very much on target to our budget. Expenses on the next page. Our total expenses are $202.1 million, and which consists of employee costs, JSSD water, sewer, storm, and reservation charges, and then as well as depreciation, engineering, repairs, maintenance, meter replacement, and professional costs. We're 97,000 unfavorable variance, driven by, obviously, one of the biggest reasons is the higher sewer charges from JSSD. 33,000 higher repairs and maintenance costs due to a pipe repair at Deer Hollow's apartment of 63,000, which is partially offset by fewer sewer-related repairs and maintenance generally. We also have higher engineering costs due to the water study and other ongoing projects. Offsetting the negative in the enterprise fund is 43,000 favorable for Public Works Department savings due to fewer smart meter replacements. We did a lot of replacements at the end of last year, consulting and material supplies as well. And then we do not have any we have very few legal issues in the water fund, so we are favorable by about 46,000 in the water fund. I wanted to bring this up to the town council. So we just talked through where we were from the enterprise fund as well as the general fund. We've said that the enterprise fund is doing well, which is the water fund. The general fund, because we have to use so many dollars from MIDA, we have had some cash position issues in the general fund. So you can see on this page that at this point in time, in the green where it says available funds for operations, we have about $568,000 of cash. But you can see the majority of that cash is coming from the water fund or the MIDA fund. The general fund is running at a deficit of $700,000 of cash. We do believe we're going to have to continue that deficit at least until January 2026, December 26 and January 27, because the next major influx of revenue coming in will not be until we get our property taxes. So you can see that at this point in time, available funds for us to use for operations is 569,000. That has been declining over the last couple of months, and it's been declining steadily for a while. If required, the town could utilize some of the Class C road funds to cover some of the street repairs and maintenance that we had, but we prefer to be able to use that $441,000 to cover road replacements down the road if possible. 2.1 million, the items in red cannot be used because those are MIDA development funds, which need to be used for development. And they're also performance and warranty bonds from our developers. The general fund at this point in time, you can see is about 700,000 negative. So the general fund is borrowing cash from MIDA Municipal and the water fund to cover operating costs. It's paying MIDA and the water fund interest. So to the extent that the water and MIDA could be earning interest on this money, we are transferring, we're experiencing higher interest expense in the general fund, but you're also getting higher interest revenue in the enterprise fund. As I said, we cannot pay our funds back to the water or municipal fund probably until December at the end of this year. And that's at the earliest if a tax increase is approved for 2027, which we'll be addressing as part of the budget process. So at this time, the town will need to put together an agreement between the borrowing entities specifying what the interest rate is, the monthly payments, and when obligations will be made in full. So we have been paying the interest. We have been documenting everything. We are just going to formalize that a little bit. So you can see why I wanted to bring this to the town council's attention is we are continuing running at a negative cash flow for the general fund. So we do have to get a higher influx of cash into the general fund, and we are going to have to look at our budgets for next year and plan a tax increase for next year. So that's a lot to digest. So could I answer any questions from the general fund or the enterprise fund or the cash position at this point in time?
Katie, this is Brian. On the general fund, the inspection fees, I thought our building inspection fees were zero-sum game, basically.
They are.
So I don't understand why we're losing money on, I guess, custom homes.
It's really not on custom homes. It's the planning. That's the planning. When you talk about the subdivisions, we have a subdivision fee that we charge, and we have corresponding expenses in engineering as well as 10% admin associated with the subcontractors. For the planning, as it relates to planning and zoning fees, we are favorable in the planning and zoning fees themselves because there are fewer repeat plans, and so it's costing us, we're getting additional funds in for the fees associated with planning and zoning and some of our building permits. But as it relates to the division, you are correct. It's a zero sum or close to zero sum. And we do monitor that and track it by developer.
Well, thank you, Katie. That was a thorough report. We've stuck to our 20 minutes here or thereabouts. So, I have one comment or question. When will you, do it, as we're going into budget season, do you want to give a short update every month, to the council? I don't know if it would be valuable, but, because we're running in deficits on the general fund, either update us as a council, or I know you're updating me, but I mean, I think we need to update the council and the town as to where we stand going forward in these last 3 months, because truth and taxation, we may have to raise. So stay on tap for the April meeting. How's that?
Yeah, I do believe this cash position, and I'll do a little bit more about the sources and uses of the funds for April, because it is becoming a little concerning that we only have 568,000 maximum, and it's gone down from 800 to 700. The only reason it went back up in January is we got taxes in at the end of December and January. So yeah, we should be talking about the cash position and where we're at, as well as if we've been able to realize any of those opportunities or had additional risks. So on the other pages where we talked about opportunities and risk, it would be nice to talk about those on a monthly basis, because our goal is to try and get our expenses flat to budget if at all possible. So because that is one thing that it does raise a little bit more of a flag to the state when you exceed your budgeted expenses. So yes, we can definitely talk about this and take 10 minutes on each of the next 2 town council meetings.
Thanks,
Or 3
Kate.
town council meetings.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here. The next one up is the approval of a consideration of the settlement of the case, the density case, and we kind of talked about that offline. There's nothing really here.
Yeah.
And we'll revisit it on the March, what was it? March 22nd?
March 24th meeting.
24th. Okay, so we'll keep on track with that. So that brings us into, Jan, do you want to talk about the consideration and possible approval of the hideout fee and rate schedule?
We're gonna move that to the 24th as well,
We're gonna move that.
because we'll have all the water tearing.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's you're moving that to the March 24th. We're moving the settlement March 24th as well. It's gonna be, just be prepared for, special meetings on any of that as they come up, because speed will probably be of the essence here to get things moved along. So the next one is, this is you as well, Jan, on the emergency services invoice, but I think this came up previously. There was an emergency. I approved it. It turned out to be a $40,000 emergency break over in Todd Hollow and Deer Mountain Boulevard. And so it was, may have even been over a holiday. We paid it, and I think, Corbin, do we need anything on this other than?
No, it's just a requirement to notify, so you've done that, so everybody's aware that it has.
So just to make everybody aware, we paid for a large water line break in Town Hollow, in an emergency situation. Next one is Dennis, and is Jason on? We've already released the water audit. We put out a newsletter, and it's been released to the press, etc. But I just want to make sure, Dennis and Jason, do you have anything to add? Because we're getting some feedback about the water audit, and we may have to revisit certain things. I kind of leave it at that, but high level, any comments, Jason or Dennis, that you want to make?
Well, Jason, I think had prepared a really high level, overview. I know we've discussed this a lot. Um, I'll let Jason kind of take the wheel on this one. But if there's something that you would like us to discuss,
Not,
I know
not at
Jason has
this time.
prepared some
I'd
remarks.
say, yeah, I would just say because it's the first public part of the council presentation. Jason, can you, if you have some slides, you're welcome to present those, but let's try to keep this within the like 10 to 12 minutes here.
Yeah, we can definitely keep it brief. Am I able to share my screen? I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, just to briefly talk about the audit, what we did.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we've worked a lot with the town on this. This is the drinking water audit, so a study that we did to look at the town's water use, their supply, and also come up with a level of service, update that from what they had before, the amount of water to require each residents to bring to the town. And so just a brief overview of how we came up with that. There are a number of factors that go into calculating or coming up with this level of service, which is the average yearly demand per ERC. Previously, it was 0.45, and that was just an indoor number only. And so, what we did was first look at the billing data and see how much a typical full-time residence would use. And we looked at full-time residency because this is a planning number. We wanted to base this on um, the town being responsible to provide higher occupancy than what there is now for the future and to be able to provide enough water for the town. And so we looked through the billing data and we came up with what was considered full-time use. And they used, on average throughout the year, 0.24 acre feet per year per ERC. And then we decided to scale it back a little to 90% occupancy, acknowledging that it's unlikely that the town would ever reach 100%. And so taking 90% of that 0.24 acre feet per year, we get to 0.22. And that's what we're calling 90% full-time occupancy for the town. On top of that, we looked at the outdoor water use, and the town has various irrigation meters. And so we took the actual irrigation use for that year of data, which is 0.04 acre feet, added those together to get to 0.26. And then we account for the non-revenue water, and non-revenue accounts for leaks in the system, which Hideout is newer and is doing well. We found that Hideout only has about 5% water loss through leaks, or water loss from supply to the metered use at the home, and that's very good. And especially for a newer system, that's very typical. That's the low end. And so we found that the EPA has a study, a national study, that on average a home experiences a city experiences 14% water loss due to leaks. So we are using that as our non-revenue use factor. So it accounts for leaks, but also it accounts for other things such as firefighting and hydrant flushing, any theft or unmetered use in the system. That's that 14% that we're using. And the last factor is the variability factor. So water use changes year by year, and that is mostly accounted for climate. Um, you can have a dry year and a wet year, and based on what we've seen, and to account for the future, we're using a 20% variability factor. All of this adds up to the 0.36, and that's how we came to that to propose as the new level of service for the town. And this number accounts for both indoor and outdoor use, when previously the 0.45 acre feet per year was just an indoor number. For comparison's sake, Hideout is very low in what their level of service is and what it would be with the 0.36 based to other cities here in Utah. And so comparably, it's lower than any other system that we've seen. But it's because Hideout doesn't use as much water. Very low irrigation and outdoor water use is happening, and then also the occupancy. What we've seen and talking with the town, the there's an estimated about 38% full-time occupancy in the town currently, and so this level of service um, is, you know, accounting for 90% full-time occupancy. So that is conservative, and um, and yeah, so we did um, send this to the state, the Division of Drinking Water, and they have reviewed it and they've preliminarily approved it, and with the conclusion of the audit, and they are in agreement that 0.36 is a responsible number for the town for their level of service. So thanks. That's all I had to share.
Jason, thanks so much. I mean, that kind of summarized our next step, that you and Steve and Dennis took this to the state and we had a preliminary approval. That's faster than I thought, and so I'm very pleased with that. I know we could drill into this a lot. I have one basic question here on table 4. And we have 303 acre feet of water from the 2014 JSSD agreement. And one's wholesale, one's reserve, and one's irrigation, which is convertible. Kind of know about those things. Were they originally assigned to, or do you know? And we may have to backtrack on this a bit, or back check this. The reserved water of 103, was that assigned as reserved, just like developer reserved water in the bottom 2 rows, which we know come from Deer Springs and some of the developments. Was the wholesale drinking water and reserved water and the convertible water, were they originally assigned by Mustang Development and the founder? And would they, if in a reserve sense, is that 103 only assigned because we're eating into the 150, we're about done with the 150, correct? And then if we go into the second tranche, which would be the 103, can you just quickly tell the council where we would draw that from?
Yeah, Polly might know this better, as in where all these came from. Or yeah, if where the reserved water came from. Can you answer that better than me, Polly?
Yeah, the reserve water, and I don't know if Corbin's up to speed yet, but came from the 2014 GSSD agreement.
Yes, yeah.
Agreement with whom?
GSSD and us.
I know, but who gave the water to JSSD?
I believe that was negotiated by the prior administration that was in place at the time.
In 2014?
Yeah. So
And so all three elements came from, just want to verify that. And,
I think, Ralph, I can, I have the backup support that I can send you associated with that. I'm just trying to find it right now. But the assignment says it was from Brockbank, and there's a document in what I sent you earlier today. I think it's
this is probably a longer discussion. And yeah, so Katie, and if Corbin's not up to speed, I want to revisit this to make sure we're not, you know, if there's any gotchas on this, so to speak. And that we're using the water appropriately, because we've
Yeah.
used 155 acre feet roughly right now, and we're getting into tranche 2. Who owns that, and how does that get dispensed? You know, so in any case.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was assigned on August 2014 by Brockbank, the 103 as well as 50. So we've gone through his first tranche that he gave us for 150. The second tranche he gave us is 103, and the final is the 50 that was supposed to be irrigation. So yeah, you've got all the detail on that from this afternoon. You didn't get a chance to look at it, I know.
No, not even close this afternoon.
Yeah, I know.
I'll come back with you, probably when I get back to Washington. I do want to drill into this a bit more, because, don't know if we have any quote unquote water liabilities. So, but hey, Jason, thank you for all your math and your analytics, and, to Hal, really for submitting this to the state to get preliminary approval. I couldn't thank you enough for that one. So,
Yep.
okay. You guys are off the hook, Dennis and Jason, on this. And unless there's any other questions by anyone of them. Yep. So let's move on to the planning commission rules and procedures. And this was, Polly, you and I were interacting on this primarily. I don't think Corbin was, so Holly, do you wanna just kind of take a lead on this and just put this up on the screen if you can, or is it, I think it's all in.
I thought that you had decided, because we had gotten the final feedback on Tuesday, that it was decided that we were going to push this till April.
Well, we can do that. That's fine with me. If I said that, that sounds like good.
Because I don't think it's in the packet, right, Maria?
That's correct. That was my understanding.
Okay, good. So we're moving this to April. Now, what date is that? Is that the 12th?
Look that up.
Or 13th?
Sorry.
Well,
That says the April 9th
Okay.
for our next meeting.
okay, we'll move those modifications or comments on the planning commission. Thanks, Polly, appreciate that. At least we didn't have to lay it on you on this one. Next one is discussion possible approval regarding the sewer and infrastructure committee.
Same. We decided to push that because we didn't have it. By the time you and I met, it
That's
was too
right.
close to the meeting.
That's right. Okay, so we're trying to keep things off if it's too, within a couple of days. No one has time to look through the changes. And then, we've got actually two more things here. Discussion and proposed ordinance regarding rules of conduct and ethical standards. This is Brian. Brian, you wanna kick us off on this?
Yeah, so the impetus for this, on my account, was a couple of things. One was, I believe back in one of the September council meeting, Councilmember Hazelton suggested that after looking, I think, at the planning commission rules, that the town council ought to have something similar. And then when I got elected in November and went to the Utah League of Cities and Towns training in December, one of the presenters there, who was the former legal director and now is a consultant, he spent over a half an hour on digital communications. And then there's like a 15-minute Q&A session after that. So 45 minutes out of a 4-hour session was a lot. And that prompted me to ask some questions there about, had towns gotten into trouble, where, said, yes, they have, and in general, you gotta be very careful how to do that. So I did some research into what other local communities around here had done for ordinances to do that. And I used AI a lot. I might use a couple of AI services to look up this stuff, and that got references in there. And so basically, this is, our code is pretty minimal from that area. In fact, it doesn't address digital communications at all. So that's what this tries to address. And so no pride of authorship here. So it's really up to the council to review and make recommendation to change if that. One thing I do want to ask Corbin, because I thought about this talking to Jonathan. There are two working groups that might have an issue with the Open Meetings Act, and that's in the Infrastructure and Public Safety Advisory Committee that Jonathan and I co-chair, and in Tanya's Economic Development Committee, there's this developer relations working group. And from the IPSAC, it's technical side, from the Economic Development Committee, it's economic issues. Where we want a more, shall I say, efficient, much more efficient process to work out issues with developers especially ahead of time of going to the planning commission. They've been complaining about how long it takes 2 years to get something approved. This was something we came up with to say, well, we can answer a lot of these questions if we have these collaborative sessions ahead of time and work out 90% of the questions that would come up over months and months and months with planning commission and town council reviews. So the question is, since we're having those discussions with developers, are they considered ex parte communications, and do we need to do something? I always thought just publishing the decisions publicly would be enough, but maybe not. Do we need to make them public meetings?
That's a good question.
That's more overhead to setting it
Yeah.
up, but
So I've never seen a scenario where like city council members are actually sitting and interacting with a developer. I need to think about that. So let me make a note on that and I'll look into it. My initial concern is, yes, that would be ex parte communication and probably not appropriate. It can meet with staff. Let me think through what the appropriate line would be there. I'll get you some guidance on.
okay. Because we'd like to be able to do that. And that's one of the things that at the training I went to, they were saying is even the 2x2 rule, kind of tends to violate the spirit of the Open Meetings Act. They discourage that. So I put some language in here for that, but then I wasn't thinking about the developer relations committees where we really want to have that free flow. So I don't want to restrict ourselves. But if we can figure out a way to do that, I mean, if my first thought was, well, if we had to, we could make it an open meeting, not for public comment, right? Because that'll take forever. But chances are we're going to do it via Zoom anyway. The thing is, we have to notice it ahead of time. It gives us a less flexibility on scheduling the meetings, but it might be the right thing to do.
Yeah, let me look at that and I'll give you some guidance on that. And I just wanted to kind of briefly look through, so I looked through kind of some of the proposals that you've got and things like that. There are some things from a legal standpoint we need to probably clean up with this. There was some areas, and so it'd probably be good at this point to let me maybe do some analysis on it, reach out to you, kind of fully understand what you're trying to accomplish here.
Okay.
And then and make sure that this is kind of in compliance with Utah code and what it is that, the ethical standards and different things like that. So rather than probably spend a bunch of time tonight on this, I think there is going to be some edits that I'm going to need to make. And so if you can let me do that, we can put this on the next agenda. I'll work with you. We'll get that done and I'll get a version back out.
That's fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a concern. I have a significant concern. I think the way that we approach this is important because this is out for the public. It was picked up by the park record. And one could look at this document and think that there's an ethical problem in Hideout, which there's not. Right, so I think it has a very heavy-handed tone around punishment and enforcement and punitive actions, which I don't think is the tone we want to set. We're all for transparency and operating at the highest level of ethical standards. I'm a licensed attorney here, so I take that very seriously. I have significant faith in the ethical standards of this town council. And I don't want there to be a public perception that ethics is somehow fallen short with this town council. I think if you want to approach something like this, coming at it from a governance perspective that's around improvement or process, it sets a very different tone than what was written in this document. And like I said, available for anybody reading Park Record to see. So I want to caution us that whatever it is, Brian, that you're trying to achieve, let's be very targeted on it, because this is such a broad scope. From any lawyer reading this would be like, oh, what's happening in Hideout? So I think if we can craft some discussions that get to the heart of what you're concerned about. We're already governed by the State Ethics Act, both as a municipal officer and as a public officer. And if there's some gap there that you're concerned, again, I really would like to encourage us to be very surgical about this and not sweeping in the approach, because it sets the wrong tone for the town. That's my concern.
I was not my intent, but, because our current code is totally silent, but.
It's not silent on it. It incorporates the standards at the state level,
Yeah. But
right? And that's why I'm saying we need to be surgical, like if there's a specific concern we have.
This is our code, so it's not.
Yeah.
signed.
Well, it's not silent,
No,
but it's not anywhere.
towns react when there's been an ethical problem and then there's been a breakdown, and we don't have that. So, I appreciate the training classes that you're taking and the perspective that you're bringing. I don't want to say that I'm not, and I'm all for transparency. We ran on that platform
Mhm.
as part of the election campaign.
Right.
I want to put it all out there, but this isn't the way to do it. You approach it, as I said, from a governance discussion perspective, and let's get much more surgical on what it is you want to accomplish, because I'm not even clear right now what it is you want to accomplish.
Oh, if you have any questions, just ask me.
Well, I am. What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, there are a lot of risks with digital communications. What was impressed on me was any communication we make, or any official in the town, right? That we make in texts, on social media, emails, personal emails, all those are grammable, okay? And they all can be considered positions of the town. And so we do most of our discussions via email, quite frankly, and some by text, right? But sometimes personal opinion creeps into that. And that's where you can get in trouble. And that's what impressed me, and like I say, they spent over 45 minutes discussing this.
So that's really the focus of what you're mostly concerned about. That's good to know.
I don't
Yes,
want.
that's different than what's in here.
And that's a
Well,
legitimate, that's a
like I
legitimate
said,
concern.
I
Yeah.
hate to say I had to write this,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
not
I
a lawyer.
appreciate it.
I did send it to Corbin and to Jan to review first,
Yeah.
right?
So I will, so with that understanding, let me work on that. We'll talk and let's focus on what.
And if this is redundant to state law, we take that out.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything that is,
We
absolutely,
don't wanna repeat that.
absolutely.
I think you design it though too around protocols, right? Because you run into First Amendment rights when you start restricting somebody's speech. So the way I've seen this handled, and I work for a public company, I'm
Yeah.
general counsel of a
Well-
public company. Like, we're constantly giving guidance on what people
Yeah.
can put out there, or not can, how they can put stuff
Well,
out
that's,
there.
actually, that's very handled very simply by just putting a statement. If you do something on personal media or text or personal email, just say, this is my personal opinion, right?
Yeah.
Not a member of the, not a representation of the town. That's how the town stays out of trouble.
I think it's important, sorry, but.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I think it's important to note that the Open Meetings Act is 18 pages, single space. It's very specific. we are all bound by the Open Meetings Act. It's not like it's optional. It's not like we have to adopt it because it's state law. And the same for the Utah Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act. That's 9 pages of single space stuff. We are all bound by it. We don't have to adopt it because it is the law and we have to follow it. So to the extent that we're either duplicating or running afoul of either one of these acts, I think we have a problem. I think we should recognize that we're all bound by these 2 laws, abide by them, but that doesn't mean that we have to double up on them, because that creates an interpretation nightmare.
Well, as I just said, if that's the case.
Yeah, then we can do that. So really what I'm hearing is digital communication is the big concern that you can't have that. Let me talk with you about that and because I think that this, we can focus on that and accomplish what it is that I can do.
We can simplify that, it'd be great.
Yeah.
That's the key word for me. It was way too long. I read at least 10 towns at the state, the legislature, the feds. I read all their ethical standards, and they're very short. Like Park City, as an example, has what, 6 bullets? You know, so I think extending this so far could put the town in legal liability if you don't follow every word that's in our standards. So I'm gonna leave this to you, Corbin, so that we could, what I would call making things concise, focused, and directional.
Yeah.
But you know, doesn't have every single word in here that could lead us down the rattle.
Yeah, no, this
As
is,
a town. And
we
I
just
don't
want
want
a
that
chance
to
to talk. And if, and in the future, if there's like things like this that you're interested in, I mean, you send it over to me, I didn't have a chance to review it. It probably would be good to just kind of reach out real quick and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm trying to accomplish. That way I know where you're coming from. So we'll go from there. So I'll take a look and we'll work on this for the next meeting.
Okay. Perfect. So where are we here? Bob, I think, there's not on, I think we got to the end of this, but Mr. Neighborhood would like to share something with you.
Okay, I've been here for 5 years. I do not have time to do this anymore. I am tendering my resignation. I was an honor working with all of you. So that's good.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
But sweet.
I'm sorry to see you go.
I'm sorry to see me go too. It's good. We're gonna save.
But
we're saving the
you're not
best
gonna
for-
forget us, are you? Good job.
Well, it was a pleasure. Can I keep this? Actually, you know what? In hindsight, here's what I wanna do. This is for posterity's sakes right here.
Wanna hold it up? I'll take your picture.
I tell you what, why don't you sit down and Jan or Maria, can you?
This is
get-
way more
can
obnoxious.
you get a better picture of all that? Is this on the agenda? I don't know.
No, we're totally off the reservation right now. So,
But get Bob while he's there.
but what are you gonna do? I quit.
Is that the caption?
Moving on to a better position.
All right,
I would say I don't have time to do this in case it's not painfully evident
all
at this
right.
point. So-
Okay, smile, ready, 1, 2.
Well, here,
and-
hang on, I gotta hold this up here. All right.
That should all fine, okay. Minute, wonderful,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Awesome.
And
All right.
Thank you.
let me just get this, you're resigning at the end of this calendar day.
Yeah.
So it's important that we
Step on
capture
right.
the fact that, it's at 11:59.
Today.
Today.
Well,
Yeah.
it's down, not
If
there.
anybody needs me, I'll be in China. So,
If you need a genuine imitation Rolex, go to.
I'll have it. So anyway, I will,
I need a new suit. I'm going to Hong Kong.
No, we have guys.
It'll be a great suit.
Yes.
Is that the beginning of the meeting?
No, we've got a couple more things, but, and I just wanted to give you a place on the agenda.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna keep this,
I know a little bit about.
Oh, thank you.
To run Tuesday. Is that at the end of the
You
year?
know, we had just committee updates, so I don't think this is all relevant to you. And we're not gonna do the the approval of the town minutes because there were too many inconsistencies
There you go.
that were spotted, so we're gonna move that over. Hang in.
I'm over here.
The consent
Is,
agenda.
so on the committee updates, we might be able to wrap this up in 2 minutes, I don't know.
All right.
Thomas, are you on?
So Thomas is not on, however,
Okay,
I
good.
have his update if you'd like me to give it to you. He would really like me to give it to you.
Okay.
If you have an emergency, you should just.
Sounds like-
Bye.
Thank you so much. It's good to see everybody. We'll get it done.
All right, I'll be quick. Okay, so this is a planning commission update. Just a fast overview of what's going on at the next meeting next Thursday. It will be review and possible action by the planning commission regarding the Deer Springs Phase 3 preliminary subdivision. Review and possible action by the planning commission regarding the Hideout Fire Station preliminary subdivision. Hideout Fire Station preliminary subdivision, and then we're having a work session about the Hideout Mountain Village and general plan work session there as well. That's it.
Well, that was easy.
Wonderful.
And going forward, I'm not gonna have any advisors represent the committee updates because we have to pay for them all the way through the meeting. So that's very inefficient. Whoever's on the planning commission that's not paid, in this case, Rachel or the vice chair, Kat, should submit the report and not Thomas any further. Just to, back to, being a little bit more frugal here.
We're not working on that general fund deficit.
Yeah, exactly. We've got quickly, EDC, anyone want to say anything?
We are in recruiting mode, so that's where we are for EDC. We have a couple of very promising candidates. Ralph and I are scheduled to talk to one of them next week, who has significant experience in economic development work. So if we can get her focus and commitment, it will be a huge win for that group. So fingers crossed.
Radio, okay, trying to think. What's the date?
Basically, what I have to say is Park City Town Council voted to make their primary focus for the bus lines, the Gordo property. That's going to be down the road. I mean, it's just land. So it'll be a while. And then what we've been using, the Richardson Platte area, will be a secondary lot or an overflow lot.
Has that been finalized? Cause I've had some,
Yes.
folks from Park City say that might be changed over time.
To my knowledge, it was finalized. Everything that I read, it was completely finalized. That's Gordo's primary, Richardson Platte secondary.
Okay.
It came to a vote.
Thank you. Anything else?
No. It's for transportation.
Infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a big 2-hour session next Monday from 3 to 5, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. To go over the master plans for the 3 major utilities, water, sewer, and storm. That Hal has put together. And if people haven't done so on the committee, there's quite a few folks on it, on the staff especially, to send comments ahead of time. The whole point is to consolidate all the comments and come up with a consolidated position, and we'll go back to the council for recommendation.
Part of that is figuring out priorities. Right, we have limited funds. We're gonna have to figure out what we can do financially and what we can't in the short and longer terms.
Right, exactly.
So, wildfire committee is part of the infrastructure committee, who was on a call today, and yesterday with the committee. And, they have an aggressive, I actually had, Lauren and Josh, who's the co-chairs now. And they have, they're putting their budget together. So, you're the co-chairs. That's one of your committees you gotta look at, as well as yours. So I would expect that you're bringing a budget that's going to include the sub-working groups as well as the overall. And you guys probably have the biggest need for the Dennises of the world, et cetera. So,
And the Gordons.
yeah. And so.
Yes.
And, yeah, exactly. And so if that's the case, then, we need to ratchet this into the budget.
We've started that.
That's
Yeah, we have started that.
There's, Katie's working on the budget, so we need to get the numbers in, on that. And I can just tell you the wildfire is looking at least like 40 for cameras and things like that, so I can't imagine. You guys having less than that for other things, but that could be a lot of services, so I ask you for that.
Yep.
Also on the committee meetings in general, I have an outline of what I expect for, and so the wildfire committee again is doing that. If you haven't had any meetings, obviously it's not your recruitment mode, but I would expect that the wildfire and the infrastructure have a formal process going forward, tracking meeting notes, goes back to everything we talked about here in terms of providing the town clear and concise communications.
Yeah, I'll start putting in that form. I've been just sending an email to you.
It's fine, yeah, I mean, this is all.
Yeah.
So.
We wanna make sure we're documenting everything.
Yeah, I think we need a vision and mission statement. So anybody on any committee that needs any help on budget and vision and committee, vision statement and notes, but I'll be glad to participate and knock through this.
Getting that to you over a month ago.
What was that?
The chart.
That's right, you did. So I apologize.
Check that one off.
Ralph, can I just clarify something? I misspoke earlier. I'm going to send you the document for those 103 and the 50, but it doesn't specifically say who brought those to the town. So I just sent it over to you.
Okay, we'll definitely take this offline. There's more follow-up that needs to be done here. And
Yeah.
that's part of everything, and it looks like Bob is no longer part of the communications committee, so. I don't
Nothing to say anyway.
I don't have a lot to say on communications, except, we wanna do better resident communications. I'd like to do a survey. This would probably go to the new council person, in the month, but in the meantime, that part of this is events. So we have to put some money in the budget. I'll have to do that for, our concert or two, so. Katie, did you hear that? So expect some, just like last year, we're probably gonna have to put something like, what was last year's 15, Jan?
It's about, yeah.
And we, it's like, that was one, but maybe we can start figuring out how to make money on it.
Start charging more.
Start charging more or getting more sponsors.
Selling swag.
Selling swag, maybe, that's a risk. Hasn't happened.
Yeah, true.
So that's my responsibility right now, and I will continue to work on that until I can, so we have some additional, resources here. And that's all I have, and that's all we have here, so, any last comments before I ask for a motion?
No, I'd just like to thank Bob for his service.
Thank you.
And, I'll be looking forward to that $12 romance.
5 years is a long time.
Carol, I think this makes you council person emeritus. Is that the right word? You're the longest serving one, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, longest, yeah.
The
I
longest,
guess
right.
I am.
Yeah.
Were you the longest? I don't even know. I
I
thought she was anyway,
think she was anyway.
I was anyway, yeah.
but that's okay, you're.
Yeah, actually, you know what? You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
because you
number
got
two.
right after.
You were number 2.
Yeah.
I can only echo what Brian just said, thanks,
All right,
Bob.
no, it's my pleasure.
I mean, you've done a lot, so appreciate it, safe travels, and make sure you don't leave us in the lurches, bring your favorite goodies wherever you go, whether it's Amsterdam or Hong Kong or Tokyo. or whatever.
I'll come into the town council meetings
We're gonna miss you.
from time to time with foreign goodies. That's my promise to you.
Perfect job.
Plus, you all know where I live.
So that's all on the record. Anybody have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Brian and Jonathan, Carol,
Yes,
Daniel,
yes.
Brian
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay. We're finished. What time did we get out of it?
Right.
Oh my God.
It is a record for Carol. I'll save that along. Save the rest.
Yeah,
That's one way to introduce it.
we can keep doing the push.
Yeah.
We will see you around,
You will.